These are all 35 final forms in One Piece, and today we'll be ranking each one. These transformations include Devil Fruit awakenings, science, unique abilities, and even some mysterious unexplained transformations that you wouldn't believe are real. For example, Orochi, the tyrannical shogun of Wano, has a really cool final form that makes him look like a giant 8-headed snake. This transformation is achieved through his mythical Zoan Devil Fruit, and despite size and strength, this form also grants Orochi 8 extra lives, one for each head of the snake. This means that he needs to be decapitated 8 times in order to permanently die. Although this form had immense potential, Orochi was still pretty weak and was easily defeated, making this the weakest form on the list. One covered, 34 more to go, and let's continue with one of the weirdest final forms in the entire show. Although Vegapunk was initially just a regular human, at some point he decided to create satellites of himself. He did this by splitting himself into 6 different bodies, all with their own personalities inspired by parts of himself. After this process, Vegapunk's brain was stored in Punk records, and pretty much acts like a library that all of his satellites can access. I guess someone becomes a cool giant snake and someone just becomes a huge brain in a tube? A far cooler transformation is Gecko Maria's final form, which he can achieve through his Kage Kage no Mi. You see, throughout the years, Maria stole shadows of many people he crossed paths with, and he mostly used them to create an army of zombie warriors. However, if enough shadows are collected, Maria can use them all at the same time and absorb them into himself in order to transform into his final form. This form is called Shadows Asgard, and once transformed, Maria pretty much becomes a huge monstrous version of himself with spiky hair and horns. His physical strength is also increased to insane levels as he was able to split Thriller Bark in half with a single attack. Due to his massive size, Maria's speed is reduced in this form, and also, if he's hit hard enough, he'll start throwing up shadows, making him slowly lose strength. Although Hody Jones wasn't that strong and got defeated relatively easily, he has a really cool final form. During the events of the Fishman Island arc, he began to take energy steroids in order to get stronger. Each pill he took doubled his strength, and he took, well, a lot of pills. He became visibly bigger, faster, and even his teeth became sharper. In his steroid form, he was able to turn water droplets into bullets and hurl them at his enemies, and was strong enough to break entire ships with his jaws. And if you liked the video so far, here's the steroid pill that you can take that will make you strong enough to absolutely destroy the subscribe button. Go ahead, try it, thanks. When we were introduced to Momonosuke for the first time, we learned that he ate an artificial fruit that was a replica of Kaido's Uo Uo no Mi. However, this can't really be considered the final form as he was only able to transform into a small child dragon. However, during the climax of the Wano arc, Shinobu managed to artificially age Momonosuke using her Devil Fruit, which transformed him into a gigantic dragon just like Kaido's. In this form, Momo gained a massive increase in strength and durability, and his bite was even able to hurt Kaido. Later on, during his fight against Green Bull, Momo was able to perform Kaido's Bolo Breath attack and succeeded in damaging the Admiral. Okay, some of the transformations so far were pretty cool, but there are still 30 final forms left to cover, and some of them near the end are completely mind-blowing. Throughout the series, we learned that Chopper can transform into multiple different reindeer forms by using his Rumble Balls. Although all of these forms are useful in certain situations, without a doubt his strongest final form is Monster Point. Initially, this transformed Chopper into a huge reindeer monster with no emotions and a thirst for chaos. However, after the time skip, Chopper learned how to control this form, which made it even more dangerous. Additionally, he's now able to stay in this form for much longer, a maximum of 30 minutes before reverting back. Although Virgo was introduced all the way back in Punk Hazard, his final form remains one of the most unique ones in the entire show, even to this day. Virgo's final form involved him coating his entire body with armament hockey, which was never seen in the series since then. In this form, he was able to stand his ground against some of the Straw Hats and even injured Sanji's leg when they clashed. Even though this may be the coolest looking form on this list, as it turned out, it wasn't that strong, as Law was still able to cut Virgo in half using his Devil Fruit. Tamago's Devil Fruit, Tamatama no Mi, pretty much turns him into an egg and allows him to regenerate into a stronger body each time he's defeated. His strongest form we've seen in the show so far is called Count Niwatori, and it pretty much makes Tamago look like an oversized white rooster with wings and a mustache. In this form, he's stated to be the true knight. Although this form's abilities were never revealed, we know he managed to survive Pedro's explosion at point-blank range with no injuries, which means his durability must be on an extremely high level. Even though Caesar's Gasu Gasu no Mi already transforms him into a ghost-like form, there's actually one thing he can do to transform even further. You see, among other things, this fruit allows Caesar to absorb other gases and take their properties. opponents. He showcased this during his final battle against Luffy when he fused with a chemical weapon he created which completely transformed his appearance. This form is called Shinokuni, and when transformed, Caesar becomes gigantic and the color of his body also changes to purple. Due to being infused with toxic gas, he's also much deadlier in this form, and his opponents have to be really careful not to get into contact with poison. This was shown when Luffy punched Caesar and his arms became coated with poison. Pika's Ishi no Mi allows him to merge with and manipulate stone, so you bet there are many cool transformations he can pull off with this ability. However, by far his strongest form is when he merged with the entire Dressrosa castle and became a huge stone giant. In this form, Pika is obviously incredibly strong, but most importantly, he's almost unkillable. You see, Pika can freely move his real body through the stone, meaning that it's really hard for the opponents to land a good hit on him. There are still 25 forms left, and let's continue with Compone Bege. Bege's devil fruit is called Shiroshiro no Mi, and it pretty much turns him into a castle human. And although being a regular human castle is cool, this is not all that this fruit offers. Bege's final form is called Big Father, where he transforms himself into a giant fortress. This fortress is equipped with cannons and is able to house hundreds of people. This is pretty much a last resort technique that Bege uses to protect himself and his crew, and although it is incredibly durable, a strong enough attack from the outside can force him to deactivate it. Hawkins' final form is called Strawman's Card, and when activated, Hawkins creates a gigantic straw monster. This monster mimics Hawkins' movement and is pretty much an extension of his real body. The Straw Giant wields a variety of weapons and also possesses incredible strength, as even Zoro struggled to defend against its attacks. One downside to this form is that Straw Giant's behavior is dictated by tarot cards Hawkins draws, meaning that luck is a big component of whether this form will work properly. Brook was originally a regular human, but after dying at sea, he was reincarnated with the help of his devil fruit, Yomi no Mi. Once reincarnated, Brook's appearance completely changed to that of a skeleton. Throughout the series, Brook kept evolving and eventually learned how to use the energy from the underworld to create ice. Not only that, but he also got the ability to exit his own body and roam freely like a ghost. All of these abilities eventually earned Brook the epithet, the Soul King. However, by far the most impressive final form so far is Usopp's final form, Soga King. While in this form, Usopp becomes one of the strongest characters in the entire story. It's said that in this form, Usopp could take down all 4 emperors together without breaking a sweat, although it was never officially confirmed. Soga King is also very humble and doesn't like to show off his strength, so I'll put him in 22nd place for now, although we all know where he actually belongs. Robin ate the Hana no Mi, a devil fruit that allows her to sprout multiple body parts on any surface and even create full clones of herself. Although the basic abilities of this fruit were already pretty strong, during Robin's fight against Black Maria, she managed to bring them to a whole new level. Robin's final form is called Demonio Fleur, and when transformed, she creates a giant copy of her upper body with a pair of bat-like wings, shaded skin, fangs and horns, giving it the appearance of a devil. Although Robin didn't get any new abilities in this form, her physical strength was massively increased to the point that it allowed her to finally defeat Black Maria. Even though Cavendish was originally introduced as a gag character during the Dressrosa arc, none of us expected him to have such a terrifying transformation. Like a few other characters on this list, Cavendish's power-up consists of him transforming into his alter ego, Hakuba. Hakuba awakens when Cavendish falls asleep and grants him tremendous speed and bloodthirstiness. In this form, he's too fast for eyes to track him. Even with observation hockey, he can barely be seen. In this form, Cavendish defeated Dellinger, one of the officers of Don Quixote pirates, instantly without being seen. This is an impressive feat considering that even some of the Straw Hats had trouble defeating other officers. Throughout his entire life, Frankie has always been obsessed with building things and has even made cybernetic enhancements to his own body. Although many of these enhancements significantly increased his strength, there is one upgrade that can be considered Frankie's final form, General Frankie. General Frankie is a huge mecha robot that Frankie can pilot and control. The robot's body is installed with advanced and powerful artillery with destructive power that's significantly greater than Frankie's regular weapons. It's also extremely resilient to damage, shown when most of Baby Five's explosive attacks were not powerful enough to harm it, despite her claim that even a pacifista would not resist her techniques. In this form, Frankie was even strong enough to defeat Sasaki of the Beast Pirates, although his body suffered immense damage during the battle. Even in their base forms, minks are weird creatures. They're pretty much humanoid animals with human intelligence and the ability to speak. However, they have a really unique power that allows them to transform into a much stronger version of themselves called Sulong. Mink's Sulong form is clearly inspired by werewolves, as during the full moon they can transform into fully white creatures, significantly increasing their strength. Each mink during the full moon is at the peak of their physicality. They become feral with long claws, sharp teeth, and way more hair. When in this form, Ink's electro power is also greatly increased, and they're able to constantly emit electricity throughout their body and perform much stronger attacks. If you're wondering how strong this form is, just remember that Inuarashi in his Sulong form was enough to defeat Jack of the Beast pirates, which is an impressive feat. With that, exactly half of the final forms are covered. But can you believe there's still 17 forms stronger than these? And one of those is Enel's 200 million Voltamaru form. Although Enel's Devil Fruit doesn't change his looks in any way, when he pushes its power to the absolute maximum, he can transform into a huge electric giant, a Maru. In this final form, Enel pretty much looks like a big and fat sumo wrestler with spiked hair. When transformed, all of his electrical attacks become much stronger. However, we never got to see the full extent of this power as he was quickly defeated by Luffy, who was immune to his electricity. But if it was anyone else, they would have had a really hard time dealing with this thing. Another incredible final form with huge destructive potential is Avalo Pizarro's final form. At some point, Pizarro ate the Shima Shima no Mi, a devil fruit that allows him to merge with islands. During the fight against Blackbeard pirates and Garb, we've seen Pizarro use this ability to its full extent, merging with the entire Hachinosu Island. In this form, the entire island becomes Pizarro's body and the big skull becomes Pizarro's head. He's also capable of creating huge arms out of the island's ground to attack his enemies. Although his body is massive in this form, he's not invincible, as both Kobe and Garb showed that a powerful enough attack can still damage him to some point. Kid is the worst generation member, and the wielder of the Jiki Jiki no Mi, a devil fruit that allows him to control magnetic forces. With this ability, Kid has complete freedom to create pretty much anything he desires by pulling a lot of metal together. However, his most powerful form so far has to be the Punk Rotten. This form's name literally translates to the demonic demon, and to achieve it, Kid has to pull a lot of gigantic chunks of metal together in order to create a protective suit around him. Just like Frankie's final form, this one's also kind of a mecha suit that Kid can control from the inside. Also, the suit's arms aren't connected to the head and are instead held by magnetism, which allows for more unpredictable attacks. However, one thing that makes it significantly more dangerous than General Frankie is the fact that Kid can rebuild this demon as many times as he wants due to his magnetic abilities. For most of his adult life, Kuma was just a regular buccaneer with a really powerful devil fruit. However, at some point in his life, in order to save his daughter, Kuma agreed to be experimented on by the world government and by Dr. Vegapunk, eventually becoming a cyborg called Pacifista. Kuma's cybernetic enhancements made him even stronger than he was before, and he was even capable of shooting laser beams out of his mouth. Kuma's endurance was also greatly increased in this form, as he was able to protect Thousand Sunny from many attackers for the full 2 years before the Straw Hats returned. Magellan's devil fruit is called the Doku Doku no Mi, and it pretty much allows him to create and control large amounts of deadly poison. The power of this fruit is what eventually led to Magellan becoming the warden of Impel Down Prison, as no one was capable of escaping his poison no matter how skilled they were. During the climax of the Impel Down arc, in order to prevent Luffy and the others from escaping, Magellan activated his strongest technique called Venom Demon. When this technique is activated, Magellan produces an enormous amount of poison and forms a huge devil-like entity with it. In this form, Magellan's poison could affect non-living objects, and it would even spread over everything that makes contact with it. Magellan claimed that this technique was potent enough to destroy all of Impel Down. And by the looks of it, yeah, I think I believe him. Yamato is the child of Kaido, who ate the Ino Ino no Mi, model Okuchi no Makami. This devil fruit allows Yamato to transform into a legendary wolf deity, also known as the guardian protector of Wano. We've seen this form of Yamato for the first time during his fight against Kaido, where he managed to hold him off until Luffy's comeback. In his final, full beast form, Yamato completely transforms into a wolf with white fur, fangs, sharp claws, and tail. He also has a cloud-like veil around his body, which could hint towards this being his awakened form. Besides transformation, in this form, Yamato also has ice-related abilities, able to expel ice blasts from his mouth and even coat his body with ice for added protection. Rob Lucci, the strongest of the CP0 operatives, was one of Luffy's toughest opponents due to his incredibly powerful Leopard Zoan transformation. However, during Egghead, we learned that at some point off-screen, Lucci managed to awaken his devil fruit and achieve his final transformation. In this form, his size increased, he became slimmer, and dark clouds formed a mane around his upper body to signify awakening. While transformed, Lucci was able to tank a couple of hits from Gear 5 Luffy before being defeated, which is no small feat. After that, he was also strong enough to battle against post-Wano Zoro for an extended period of time, and they seem to be on a similar level of strength. When you remember that he lost to Gear 3 Luffy before the awakening, this transformation becomes even more impressive. Only 10 more final forms are left to cover, and from this point on, all transformations are on a completely different level than before. Marco's transformation is pretty straightforward. Due to his devil fruit, the Tori Tori no no Mi, he can transform into a blue-flamed phoenix. Just like the actual mythological phoenixes, he's got the ability to fly, regenerate from almost any injuries, and even heal others too. This transformation is so strong that it allows Marco to easily fight against both Queen and King, the two strongest members of the Beast Pirates, and even restrain them with ease. Due to his regeneration, Marco can just ignore most of the physical attacks and let them phase through his body, as his wounds will instantly vanish without a trace. Yeah, the guy's pretty much invincible. Sengoku, the former fleet admiral, ate the Hito Hito no Mi, model Daibutsu, which grants him the ability to transform into Buddha. In this form, Sengoku drastically grows in size and becomes golden. His strength and power are also greatly increased in this form, to the point that during the Marineford War, no one could stop him. He was able to greatly injure Luffy with a single punch despite Luffy inflating his body, and was later able to go against Blackbeard's entire crew with no problem. Another ability this form grants Sengoku is Impact Wave, which allows him to launch golden shockwaves from his palms that can damage the entire group of strong enemies at the same time. Hopefully we can see more of this form in the future. Sanji, the cook of the Straw Hat Pirates, has always been impressively strong since his introduction at Baratie. For the longest time, we were led to believe that Sanji was just a regular human, but during the Whole Cake Island arc, we finally learned the whole story. His father, Judge, experimented on him and his siblings while they were still in the womb in an attempt to give them superhuman abilities. Although these abilities lay dormant within Sanji for a long time, they finally awakened during the Wano arc when he used Germa's advanced tech suit. In this form, Sanji pretty much becomes superhuman with an exoskeleton that makes him nearly invulnerable and an accelerated healing rate. Even after being completely crushed with all of his bones broken, Sanji still managed to stand back up with his body snapping bones back into place. Sanji's genetic modification also made him much faster than before, to the point that he's now able to move so fast that he's completely invisible to the naked eye. He managed to defeat Queen in this form and is currently fighting against Gorosei, which goes to show how strong he really became. Zoro is the primary swordsman of the Straw Hat Pirates, who practices a really weird style called three-sword style. As the name states, he uses 3 swords, placing the third one in his mouth. And although that sounds weird, Zoro's final form is even weirder. It's called the Asura, and Zoro can activate it through sheer willpower alone. Once activated, Zoro creates an illusion of 2 more heads and 4 more arms, transitioning into 9-sword style and resembling Demon God Asura. Although Zoro developed this technique pre-time skip during his battle against Kaku, it's during Wano that we saw just how powerful this form really is. Zoro infused this form with powerful Conqueror's Haki during Onigashima, and his attack was strong enough to leave a permanent scar on the Emperor. That's something only Odin has achieved before. However, by far the most important use of this ability was seen at the end of the Wano arc when Zoro used Asura to eat and drink all at the same time. Now that's what I call the ultimate ability. Green Bull's Devil Fruit, the Mori Mori no Mi, may seem like a regular Logia Devil Fruit, but it's much more unique than the other ones. Instead of letting him transform into a certain element, this fruit lets Green Bull transform into and control all plant life. His most powerful transformation we've seen so far consists of him transforming into a huge tree man. When transformed, he can attack his opponents with enlarged fists, extend his roots quicker, and also seems to have significant upgrades in strength. Big Mom is an incredibly powerful pirate, possessing all 3 types of Haki and also wielding an insane devil fruit called Soru Soru no Mi, which allows her to manipulate souls. With it, Big Mom can steal the souls of other people and put them into non-living things, giving them life. However, another thing Big Mom can do with these souls is infuse them into herself. This is exactly what happened during her battle against Kid and Law when she stole Lifespan from a bunch of beast pirates around her. When infused with souls, Big Mom gets significantly bigger, stronger, and even her eyes start glowing. These infused souls can also merge with Big Mom's skeleton, allowing her to heal broken bones by commanding them to return to their proper structure. It's truly a frightening power, and it allowed Big Mom to stand her ground against Kid and Law, who were both awakened Devil Fruit users. The 5 Elders is a group of the highest ranking celestial dragons, who, along with Imu, secretly control the world from the shadows. Although they were portrayed as politicians for most of the show, and not fighters, that all changed recently during the Egghead Island arc. It's here that we saw their true forms for the first time, and learned that each of them can transform into a devilish creature from Japanese mythology. In their final forms, Gorosei have the black fire cloud around their bodies, hinting towards these being their awakened forms. They also have some of the most unique abilities we've seen in the show so far. First of all, they appear to be immortal, with all of their injuries healing instantly. Secondly, all of them can communicate with each other telepathically. And lastly, using some kind of invisible aura, they can hurt people simply by looking at them. The creatures Gorosei transform into are Gyuki, Sandworm, Bokotsu, Fengshi, and Izumare. Kaido ate the Ue no Mi, model Seiryu, which allows him to transform into a giant azure dragon. Although Kaido is an absolute beast in this form and can perform a large variety of strong attacks, this actually isn't his final form. His true final form is called Flame Dragon Torch, and it manifests when Kaido breathes a large amount of flames from his mouth, which coat his original dragon body and take its shape. When in this form, Kaido's already huge body becomes even bigger, rivaling Onigashima in size. Due to being coated with fire, Kaido can almost instantly melt anything he comes into contact with, which prevents his opponents from touching him. We unfortunately only saw this form briefly, since Kaido was defeated by Luffy soon after, but honestly, I don't think anyone else besides Luffy could survive this. Before we cover the strongest final form in this video, let's first cover another groundbreaking transformation, the Big Emperor. The Big Emperor is probably the most brilliant creation of the Straw Hat crew to this day. This transformation involves 6 different Straw Hats merging into a giant mecha robot. The Big Emperor is not particularly battle tested, but its power could probably rival the likes of Roger and Whitebeard in their primes. Okay, jokes aside, this transformation is so cool that I couldn't make this video and not mention it. And if Robin agreed to complete the transformation, it would probably break the One Piece world. As the main character of the show, Luffy has many unique and powerful transformations, ranging from really cool and strong ones to some, well, less strong ones. However, it's during the Wano arc that Luffy finally awakened his final gear form, Gear 5. Luffy achieved this form through the awakening of his devil fruit, and it's pretty much the pinnacle of power. When transformed, Luffy's entire outfit turns white along with his hair, and his eyes become red. In this form, Luffy can do pretty much anything he imagines, which includes turning everything around him into rubber, running on air, absorbing any attack, and even catching thunderbolts with his bare hands. However, the coolest thing Luffy can do in this form is force rubber properties onto his opponents, which would make them appear dumb and cartoonish. Okay, Gear 5 is obviously the most ridiculous and strongest final transformation in the story, but did you ever wonder if this form is strong enough to defeat our real-world military? Well, if you did, you can click on this video to find out.